If you have a sense that life has lost its shine and the weight of everything seems to double every day, it's time to understand what depression may be doing to you and how you can turn around. Have you noticed that your friend, boyfriend, or husband acting differently lately? Maybe he is quieter, avoiding going out, or even getting away from everything he used to love. The truth is that many men deal with depression in silence, not realizing or wanting to admit that something is wrong. They carry the weight of the world on their backs, trying to be strong all the time, but inside, they are fighting an invisible battle. If you have identified with this situation, then this text is for you. Let's talk about how depression affects men in ways that often go unnoticed, from social isolation to lack of motivation and fear of failure. And if you are a woman who is seeing someone important in your life go through this, here you will find valuable tips on how to offer the support he needs even if he does not know how to ask. But it doesn't stop there. This video is also a call for him, for the man who is facing this fight alone. Here we will understand the mental traps that depression creates and, most importantly, how to start turning around one step at a time. 1. Isolate yourself. Just imagine. You wake up one day, and suddenly it seems that the whole world has become very noisy. The voices of people around seem to increase in volume. The daily interactions that were once so simple, like answering a message or giving a good day for someone, now require a monumental effort. Depression has this insidious effect. It is infiltrating silently, and before you know it, that desire to be close to others disappears like smoke in the wind. You can start slowly with an excuse here and there, avoiding a party, then postponing a date with friends. And the most ironic is that for those who are outside, this may seem only tiredness or laziness, but for those who are in the eye of the hurricane of depression, socializing seems like a mountain impossible to climb. Every unanswered message, every ignored call is like a weight being piled on the back, until the idea of being anywhere but the refuge of one's own bed seems unthinkable. But it's not just that. For many, isolation is almost a self-preservation need. Do you know when you have that thought that nobody will understand? Depression whispers it all the time. She convinces that it is better to be alone, away from eyes that can judge, away from questions that seem invasive, even when they are made with good intentions. And worst of all, sometimes people with depression think they are doing others a favor by walking away, as if their presence is a burden. It's a cruel cycle, because the more you isolate yourself, the harder it is to get out of this emotional cave. It's like being stuck in a maze, where every attempt at an approach seems to lead to a dead end, and ultimately loneliness becomes not just a choice, but a kind of silent companion, always there, waiting for the next moment of isolation. 2. Be disorganized. Now, try to visualize the following scenario. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet touch the ground, that huge weight is already there, as if the air around you is denser, pulling you down. The idea of just getting out of bed seems like a battle you don't have the strength to win. And then you think about everything you should do. Clean the room, wash the dishes, fold those clothes that are scattered everywhere, and just thinking about it, fatigue already takes over. It's not just laziness. It's not just lack of will. It's as if something invisible has drained all your energy, and any movement to solve the chaos around you seems to require more than you can give. Depression has this power. It turns simple tasks, the kind anyone would do on autopilot, into gigantic challenges. And as time passes, you get used to living in that disorganized environment. Even knowing it makes you feel even worse. It's like a vicious cycle. The mess around you seems to reflect the chaos inside your mind, and at the same time amplifies that. Every dirty dish in the sink, every pile of clothes thrown on the floor, every crumpled paper on the table will accumulate until at some point, the environment seems impassable. The physical mess is becoming mental. But even knowing this, exhaustion prevents you from doing anything about it. And then, suddenly, you are stuck, surrounded by this disorder that only worsens your state, but seems impossible to reverse. Everything will get out of control until you stop and realize that this external mess is just the reflection of everything that is crumbling inside, as if depression was in every corner of your house, watching you, holding you, and making the simple act of organizing something so small into an unbearable burden. 3. Poor hygiene. Now, think for a second. Something as simple as showering, a daily routine that, for most people, is automatic, a relaxing moment turns into a real mental marathon for those who are dealing with depression. It seems exaggerated, right? But it's not. Depression has this ability to suck all your energy, leaving you with that feeling of deep tiredness, as if you had run a marathon without leaving the place. And then, the idea of getting up, walking to the shower, turning on the water, taking off your clothes, washing, all this should be easy, seems impossible. The simple act of moving already sounds like a torture. And the more you think about it, the heavier it gets. Brush your teeth? Oh, I wish it was just a matter of remembering to do that. It is not even laziness. It is a deep exhaustion. An exhaustion that makes any minimal task seem a sacrifice. Every day that passes without you taking care of yourself, the guilt begins to accumulate because deep down, you know you need to do this, that your body needs it, but depression does not let. It is as if something was holding you in a constant state of paralysis. The worst part is that, in the eyes of others, it may seem careless or unwilling, but the truth is much more complex and painful. You want to take care of yourself, want to feel the sensation of water running down your body, the freshness of a clean mouth, but the act of just getting out of bed already consumes all your available energy. And the more time passes, the harder it gets to break the cycle because you start avoiding the mirror, starting to avoid people's touch, getting further away from your own essence. What should be self-care becomes a distant memory of a version of you that no longer seems accessible, and this, in the end, only makes it worse. 4. Problems with sleep. Now, imagine the scene. It is dawn, and you are lying there in bed with your eyes wide open, while darkness surrounds you. The world outside is quiet, but in your head it's chaos. You're tired, exhausted even, but sleeping just isn't an option. It is as if your mind is stuck in the mode of hyperactivity, bombarding you with thoughts that do not give respite, like a flood of worries, fears, regrets, and insecurities. With every minute that passes, you look at the clock, and frustration grows because sleep does not come. And when you finally close your eyes, the alarm clock is already ringing, throwing you back to a new day, without any energy. But of course, there is another side to this coin. Some days you feel so crushed by the weight of depression that sleep is the only thing that makes sense. The bed becomes a refuge, a place where you can hide from the world and all the problems that seem gigantic when you are awake. And so you sleep, and you sleep, and sleeps a little more, but instead of waking up renewed, the tiredness is still there, as if sleep was just another bottomless hole, sucking your energy rather than restoring it. You get up just to feel that you could sleep another 10 hours, because even after a long period of sleeping, the tiredness persists, stuck in you like a shadow. And there's the great trap of depression. Both insomnia and excessive sleep turn into prisons. None of the options offers true rest, and you get stuck in this cycle where sleep, something so essential to feel good, becomes another factor that leaves you exhausted. Insomnia or endless sleep, no matter what side you face, the result is the same. You wake up tired, and life seems increasingly heavy. This will consume you, because the feeling of never being able to rest makes the simple act of living an unbearable burden. 5. Everything is a catastrophe. Now, think with me. You're going through a normal day, nothing very extraordinary happens, but then, out of nowhere, something goes wrong. It can be a message that you misinterpreted, a comment out of place, or even a small mistake in the work. For anyone else, it would be just a setback, something that gets resolved quickly, but for those who are struggling with depression, the story is completely different. This little problem turns into an epic catastrophe and cannot prevent the mind to start spinning in a spiral, amplifying everything. Suddenly, that slip seems like the end of the world. It's as if your mind picks up this situation and does an infinite looping with it, convincing you that it is a proof that everything in your life is falling apart. And not stop there, because when you are with the mind immersed in depression, you not only amplify the negative, but start actively looking for more reasons to believe that everything is lost. If something small went wrong, then in your head, surely other bad things are on their way, and it is a matter of time until everything goes wrong for good. You find yourself waiting for the next tragedy, as if it were inevitable. and even good news loses its shine. Does anyone praise your work? Oh, they're just being nice. Actually, they didn't think it was so good. Does anyone ask you out? They must have done it out of pity, not because they really want my company. 6. Bad eating habits. Now think about it. You're sitting at the table, the food is in front of you, but no matter how much you look at it, the will to eat just isn't there. The food seems dull, tasteless, and the simple act of taking the fork to the mouth already seems exhausting. When depression gets you, it not only steals your energy, but also takes away your appetite. That pizza you used to love? Now it looks like a piece of cardboard without flavor. The breakfast that used to give you a boost to start the day? Forget. You catch yourself spending hours, maybe days, without eating for real, as if food is just another thing that depression has erased from your radar. On the other hand, it also has the opposite, which is when food becomes its only consolation. That package of cookies, the whole pizza, the ice cream pot. Suddenly they are the only ones who seem to understand you, the only ones who offer some kind of comfort when the rest of the world seems unbearable. And it's not even a hunger for truth. It's an emotional hunger, a desperate attempt to fill that huge void that is growing inside you. With each bite, for a second, you feel that things are a little better, but soon after comes the guilt, regret, and the realization that food will not solve anything. But still you go on because at that moment it seems the only thing that is within your reach. 7. Lack of motivation. Now, think with me. Remember that thing you love to do? That activity that made your eyes shine, that gave you that good chill in the belly just thinking, be it playing a song, playing video games, going out with friends, or even that simple hobby like reading a book or watching a favorite series. And the craziest thing is that, rationally, you know you like these things, you know that at some point they bring you happiness. But depression erases this emotional connection, and everything is empty, without color. It is as if someone has lowered the volume of life, and all that remains is this bothersome silence. You even try to force yourself to do something, take the book, turn on the video game, but after a few minutes, apathy takes over. Nothing holds you back. Nothing makes sense, and you give up. You give up trying to feel good, give up looking for that pleasure that used to be so natural. This unwillingness spreads to other areas of your life. The simple act of getting out of bed becomes a battle. The days go by, and you will sink more and more in that feeling of numbness. It's as if your mind is in slow motion, while the world continues to spin at full speed. And you are there, standing still, watching everything happen around you, but without strength, without motivation to participate. Depression puts you in a bubble of apathy, where nothing on the outside seems to matter, and what once made you feel alive now seems like a distant memory of a version of you that no longer exists. 8. Running away from your problems. Now, imagine this. You are there with a list of things that need to be solved, from the simplest to the most complicated. But with depression, the act of facing any of these problems seems impossible, as if every task is a mountain you simply can't climb. So what do? You postpone. You postpone once, then again, and when you see it's been a week, a month, and those little problems that could have been solved easily turn into huge monsters that you don't even know where to start. Procrastination becomes your best friend, because the simple idea of dealing with anything seems too exhausting. And so begins the cycle. The more you avoid problems, the bigger they get. That account you failed to pay, the email you did not reply, the job you postponed, everything will accumulate, and the more you procrastinate, the more you feel that you are losing control. But the worst thing is that depression makes you believe that avoiding these problems is the only way out. Let's wait. I can't deal with it now. Tomorrow I will. You think, but tomorrow never comes. And in the middle of all this, guilt begins to appear. You know that you should be doing something, anything, to solve the situations that are pending, but you just can't. It makes you feel even worse, and the spiral continues. The more you run away from problems, the more they grow, and the more paralyzed you feel. In the end, the problems you are trying to avoid become so big that they swallow you, and life, which already seemed difficult, becomes even more complicated. Procrastination, which seemed like a temporary solution, only makes everything worse, leaving you stuck in a cycle where the escape from problems only creates more problems. 9. Feel guilty, hate yourself. Now, to think, It's hard enough dealing with the world around you when everything seems to go wrong, but when you're depressed, it gets even worse because the battle is not just out there, it happens inside you, in your own head, all the time. The feeling of guilt begins to appear out of nowhere. You blame yourself for things that you shouldn't, for mistakes that everyone makes, for not being enough. It seems that no matter what you do, it's never good enough. The mind starts to bombard you with thoughts like, you screwed everything up, nobody wants to be around for your sake, look how much you failed. And it doesn't matter if the people around you are trying to reassure you, saying that everything is fine, because for you, nothing is ever really good. The guilt becomes a second skin that you carry, and it weighs. Every little failure, every moment when something doesn't go as planned, is proof that you're not up to it. And then what happens? This guilt begins to turn into hatred. Not an explosive hatred, but that kind of silent, constant hate that stays there, rotting from the inside out. The inner voice becomes louder, more cruel. She says that you are to blame for everything that goes wrong, that people just support you but don't really like you, that your mistakes are unforgivable. Over time, this self-depreciation will leave you stuck in a cycle that seems to have no way out. You start to believe that you don't deserve good things, that it's not worth trying to improve because the guilt and hatred are there, constantly reminding you how inadequate you feel. It destroys self-esteem because you can't see a way where things can get better. And the worst part? The more you blame yourself and hate yourself, the harder it is to break this cycle. 10. Living in fear. Now, imagine this. You finally get something good in your life, an opportunity that can change everything, a chance to be happy or realize that dream you had kept for so long. But deep down, you feel that you don't deserve it, or worse, that it will fall apart at any moment. Depression has this strange ability to make you live in constant fear, even when everything is going well. It's like a voice inside your head is always whispering, "Don't get too excited. This will end badly." And sometimes you don't even notice, but start sabotaging your own chances. It's not because you want to, but because the fear of failure, of spoiling everything, is so great that it seems easier to give up before even trying. This fear is not a common fear. It's not just that insecurity that everyone feels from time to time. It is a fear that paralyzes you, that prevents you from seeing the good things because you are always waiting for disaster. If you start a relationship, then the thought comes, this will not last. Soon he will realize that I am not good enough. And then, without even realizing it, you start to move away, to create distance, because in your head it is better to finish before the other person finishes with you. If a job opportunity or a project comes up that you really wanted, the fear of failure prevents you from taking the next step. You convince yourself that you will make mistakes, that you are not capable of doing so, and then you prefer not to try. Living like this is like walking on broken glass. Any movement can hurt you, so you end up standing still, stuck in the fear that the next step will destroy you. And meanwhile, the good opportunities pass. You see them going away, but at the same time, you can't move because the fear of pain from failure is so great that you prefer to protect yourself, even if it means losing the good things life could give you. Fear turns your prison, and depression is the jailer who keeps you trapped in it, convincing you that it's safer not to try, not to risk, not to live. If you've come this far, thank you so much for caring and being willing to inspire change. Now, if you found this content useful, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course share with others who may also benefit from this information. Thank you for a hug. Bye.